For one final time. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's meeting of the Portland Children's Levy Allocation Committee. I'm City Commissioner and Allocation Committee Chair Dan Saltzman, and I'd like to just start things off by thanking voters for their continued support of the Portland Children's Levy on May 21st. Once again, Portland has shown that it cares about the children, it cares about its children by approving the levy for another 5 years beginning in July 1st of 2014. So next year will be a busy one as we lay the groundwork for a new funding round, which we'll discuss a little bit more later on today's agenda. Now I'd like to introduce my colleagues on the committee. On my far right is Julie S. Young. She is the city-appointed member of the committee. On my immediate right is Adrienne Livingston, who is appointed by Multnomah County, citizen member. On my left is Multnomah County Commissioner Deborah Kafori, and on my far left is Ron Belts, representing the Portland Business Alliance. Now I'd like to introduce the staff of the Portland Children's Levy, Director Lisa Pellegrino, who is in charge of after-school investments. Assistant Director Meg McElroy, Meg's here, who oversees early childhood and mentoring investments. Lisa Hansel, who supervises the foster care and child abuse prevention and intervention investments. Communications Director Mary Gay Broderick, and Fiscal Specialist John Kelly. Before every meeting, and I'm not going to stop doing this, I guess, I always like to provide some background on the levy, especially for those who might be tuning in on Channel 30 to watch us. The Portland's Children's Levy was created by voters in 2002, and it was renewed in 2008, and most recently, a few weeks ago, with a 75% margin of approval. The levy annually provides about $10 million to support organizations reaching about 10,000 children and their families through programs in early childhood, after school and mentoring, child abuse prevention and intervention, helping children in foster care succeed. And under the new levy, we will add another focus area, which is preventing childhood hunger. We're pleased that we'll be able to do all of this at the same tax rate as we've always been at. The levy also operates under a 5% administrative cap, so that 95 cents of every dollar goes directly to the proven programs that achieve the positive results for our city's most vulnerable children. So we'll tackle the first item on the agenda by asking for approval of our minutes of the March 11th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. Minutes are approved. Next is we always have a public comment period for anybody who wishes to speak to us about anything that's maybe not on the agenda. Is there anybody here who wishes to address us? Okay. Thank you. So our next item is a summary of the many site visits that Levy staff have completed since last fall. Site visits are part of the ongoing grantee monitoring process the levy performs to ensure contract compliance, as well as provide important information about how our investments are operating. So I see Lisa Hansel up here. I guess you're going to lead this part of the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Lisa.
During the fall and early spring, staff visited all of the non-leverage fund grants and did site visits, which included two parts, one being program observations, where our goal was really to see the programs in action, to supplement the information that we get in written reports. Actually seeing program services delivered gives you a whole other perspective. And the second part of the reviews had to do with the data system review. This was the first time that PCL has done data system reviews, and the goal was really to get an understanding of the variety of data systems that are used by the grantees, as well as understanding the challenges that they face in getting the data that we request. After we completed all of the site visits, we did follow up with a memo to grantees with our observations about the data system review that we completed, and also some recommendations and likely expectations for the future. So first, starting with the data system review observations, and these were observations across all the program areas. We didn't do specific feedback for individual grantees. This was overall, since this was kind of baseline information that we were collecting. Most of the grantees were able to talk us through their data review, or their data systems, the policies and procedures that they use. However, very few had written protocols and procedures for data collection, data entry, data analysis, and reporting. Most of the grantees were able to demonstrate how they arrived at the data that they reported in fiscal year 2011-2012. However, in some cases, they weren't able to provide us with the backup information to support the information that was in the reports. And an example of this is sometimes multiple spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, are set up to collect information, and then the information that's in the report is actually a sum of several pieces of information from different spreadsheets. So that's one example of why it was more difficult. They didn't then necessarily save their tallies of adding those pieces of information together. Another kind of example is some of the programs do multiple sorts. They put in date periods, for example, to arrive at data that would go into the report, and they tally that again, but don't necessarily save the information. They could go back and show us, here, I could redo the sort for you, but didn't have necessarily the information just to back up, here's how we arrived at the number 347 here. Many of the grantees demonstrated confidence and skill in data tracking and analysis. However, some grantees expressed a desire for more training in specifically Excel training so that their data collection and reporting could be more efficient. And so those were the overall observations that we had, and from those observations we developed some recommendations and future expectations that are likely through the levy. These will all correlate back to the recommendations. One is that we really encourage grantees to develop written protocols and procedures for how the data collection is done, who's responsible for entering it, on what timelines, what you do with the information, how do you analyze the information, and then what information is reported in the different sections of the PCL report. And so we're encouraging the grantees to do that at this time, but likely we'll have that as a requirement the next time around. And then additionally, we'd also like to see grantees save that backup information that they use to arrive at the data that is reported in the reports. And staff will provide assistance with getting there if that is needed. And again, that would be for the next levy funding period. And then also, based on observations and things that we heard from people, many people had expressed the desire for more Excel training, and we're just finishing up, is it today or this week, the last of 5 Excel training classes. So we offered 2 Excel 1, level 1, and 3 Excel level 3 classes, and those were all at capacity or very close to capacity. So it was something that was very much needed and wanted. So in addition to this, there are also some implications for the children's levy of things that we'd like to do differently as well from our end, now that we have a better understanding of the different data systems that are being used and the challenges that grantees face in getting the data to us. One is that we will endeavor to pare down the information that we request in the reports and really just get at those nuggets of information that are going to make the most difference for us to know about and for the grantees as well. This information also gives us information about what technical assistance might be needed in the future for grantees, so it will help us do that kind of planning. And the other aha we had from this is that we really should be looking at data systems on the front end, so that when we're developing the grant agreement language and the reporting section, we're assured that the data systems that a grantee has in place will be able to produce the data that they're agreeing to produce and provide us with. So that's a summary of our data system review. And the program observations, we didn't have summaries from those. Those really were informational and supplemental to the reports that we received. Questions?
Well, I think that that's a great item to include in that, how someone collects data. I could see how a lot of organizations, you just do and you don't necessarily have something in policies and guidelines where people come in and see how you're doing it. So just the question is, are you going to provide a sample guideline so someone knows, where to start, or just to get an idea of how to put the policies together?
I'm certain we could be able to do that. I would think with technical assistance the next time around, that would be part of what we offered through technical assistance. This last time through technical assistance, one of the things that the consultants provided was assistance in creating a data manual that talks about specifically around outcomes, which tools were being used and when they're performed. So really expanding on that to also include data that's collected around demographic data and the participation data and other data points that are included in the annual report, not just the outcome information. So it would really be expanding on work that's been started.
Okay. Now that's just an idea I had. I don't know, for show of heads, nods, if that would even be beneficial to have sample guidelines, because that could just be something I'm making up for myself. So yes, no? Okay, they're saying yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I would think so too. I would think so as well.
Sounds
okay.
like a good thing, yeah.
It's a great suggestion. Thank you, Adrian. Other questions or comments?
I have a question. So without getting too specific, would you say that what percentage or what matrix of how many people, how many groups wanted more experience like working with Excel, or what needed more technical assistance? Was it half, a quarter? Is there?
especially specifically related to the Excel.
Yeah, and just
Well, Excel, the classes that we just did were full, and I believe there were 16 each one.
oh, okay. So a lot of
So
people
there were a
took
lot of
advantage
people
it.
that took advantage of that. There are other so not everybody uses Excel. A good number of programs do use Excel in their tracking. Some have specialized databases that are used, and so we're not able to provide additional technical assistance on those. But I would think, would you guys say half would need? 2/3? So, and one of the issues too, I don't think we ever
use Excel.
use.
I would say at least 2/3 probably use Excel, and I would say at least 2/3 of our agencies attended.
Somebody attended.
one or more of the Excel courses that we offered.
And and I anticipate it as an ongoing need as their staff turnover in organizations.
And is this something that we've offered
need.
before?
Yes,
Okay, that's great. Well, it sounds like people really took advantage of it, so I appreciate that we were able
it
to.
did. And we've received lots of really good feedback that it was useful. I attended one of the trainings last week as well, and it was very friendly, user-friendly, and very engaging. So it is great that we can offer that to grantees.
So going forward, we want to reduce not only the amount of information we may request from an organization, but also to make sure that they are producing the right data and saving it so that it can be doesn't have to be recreated
Right,
every
so
time
that it can
we
be
ask the question.
so that it can be verified,
Yeah.
by the organization as well as by PCL staff.
Okay. Well, thanks, Lisa. That's great. And while we have staff here, they're going to also brief us on a timeline for the funding process for the new levy, which will culminate a year from now in decisions about where we invest money from the new levy.
So let me just preface this by saying it's a draft timeline. So this is our kind of working timeline at the moment. We may have to alter it depending on how things go, but this is kind of what we have in mind from now. We want to make sure that grantees know, and just so folks know, grantees in the audience as well as folks who aren't here, we are going to post the draft timeline on the web so people will be able to see it. I think Mary Gay has paper copies right there if anybody wants just a quick reference before they go of kind of where we're heading. So given that we went out a little bit earlier this year in May, we have a little bit more time to do more thoughtful planning and have tried to expand the level of public input that we can gather, because typically we've been pretty pretty tight timeline from the passage of the levy to actually having to make funding decisions. So the first phase was trying to draft a public input plan that was a bit more extensive than anything we've done in the past. And right now we do have one drafted, and I think we included it for you all. Meg's going to talk a little bit more about that when I'm done with the timeline. And our goal is to kind of finalize that this month. We've put it out for comment to a few folks who do this kind of thing and might have some comment for us, and might have some additional groups that we might consult with, et cetera. And I would say the same to you if you all have a time to look at it. The list of folks that we're at least the list we're thinking of consulting, I'm not certain that we will consult with every single one on there because some may not be interested in talking to us. But if you have other ideas of folks you think we should be talking to, then I would invite you all to send those on by email to us, and we'll add them to the list. So anyway, that plan is to finalize that this month, and then work on actually gathering the public input through the summer and in through September. And it's a pretty broad list of folks that we're looking at gathering input from. And the idea is to try to go out to people and talk to them in their meetings rather than requiring them to all come to us. So we're allowing 4 months for that, and hopefully that will be adequate. I'm not, since we haven't done this level of extensive input, I'm not really sure if that's adequate. I guess we'll find out as we go. And then our goal is to sort of analyze that input and report the findings to you all in October. And then try to integrate that community input that we get along with, we always do sort of a research update in any levy period to kind of see what new studies and best practices show us. So incorporate that with community input and looking also at our performance over time and our metrics to create recommendations for you all for funding priorities. And also to include in the funding applications, we usually have guidelines that kind of say what we're trying to prioritize in our funding. So we would hope to bring that to you in October and November, and then finalize our policy priorities and to sort of design the application process, and as well as the draft funding applications. Have those by the end of December, done by the end of December. We would hope to publish our request for investment in January. Sort of review and staff analysis is March through mid-May, and then funding decisions mid-May through mid-June, with grants to begin on July 1st. So it's a pretty packed timeline. And for those of you who will be with us next year, it's going to be a busy year. But that's anyway just sort of the general process that we're looking at. Again, could be altered depending on how quickly we can move, but that's what we're thinking. Any questions?
Okay. Anybody have any questions? It's ambitious.
It's ambitious, yeah.
Necessary.
It's always a big process. Okay, Meg's going to talk to you about the public input
Talk
plan.
about the public input plan.
All right, so I get to explain just how ambitious we think we are. So in the past two levies, we had an input plan, a community input process that mainly used strategies to reach out to groups that would typically get our funding, so mainly providers and policy groups. We didn't necessarily do a lot of outreach with groups that might be in touch with families and children, families and parents of children who would benefit by our services, or with the community at large. And we mostly conducted our community input in the past by attending meetings or holding meetings, specifically inviting community providers and our grantees to attend, and also with specific individuals. So in doing that in the past, we used that community input to help formulate our recommendations to you all around allocation among our program areas, what types of services we should be funding to fill needs and gaps in our community. And so we have the same intent with our community input process this time around, but we'd like to broaden and deepen the input that we receive. And so we've sort of outlined a strategy to do so. The goals of our community plan are to promote community understanding of the levy, its funding processes, the services it funds, and the demographics of the children and families funded, children and families served, to understand perspectives from various diverse stakeholders about the most effective and needed services for children in our community, especially children most affected by historical inequities, and to continue to cultivate and build relationships with traditionally marginalized populations in our community. So in an effort to achieve those goals, our community input plan includes outreach to more stakeholder groups, specifically a larger number that represent specific cultural communities and that are connected with parents and families across the community, to reconnect with the groups that we talked to in the past, to offer multiple formats apart from meetings to provide us input. So in the past, we did not provide any sort of written mechanism for soliciting input from people, and this time around we plan to offer a survey that we intend to do outreach through numerous communication channels, culturally specific newspapers, neighborhood association publications, other electronic communication to try to get the community to provide input to us outside of the groups that we plan to consult. The topics that we intend to ask people about are the overall goals for the levy and its funding, including the division of levy funds across the program areas, the types of policy goals and recommendations we ought to be trying to achieve in our funding areas, needs and gaps in services in our funding areas or for specific populations in specific geographies or in service coordination, equity issues, things about our request for investment documents, such as the questions that we typically ask or the information that we seek from applicants. And then we also intend to do some evaluation of this process. In the draft plan that we have formulated so far, there is a list of the groups that we're planning to consult and the types of topics we plan to consult with them. And we have, as Lisa noted, circulated our draft proposal around to some specific groups to try to get their input on sort of what we've laid out so far. We've gotten a lot of help from the City Office of Neighborhood Involvement, specifically their Community Neighborhood Involvement Center, which specializes in this kind of outreach planning. As Lisa indicated, we're hoping to try to meet people in terms of the groups that we've outlined within their regular meeting schedule. So we're not trying to conduct a bunch of extra meetings and asking to more of people and their time, but hopefully to meet folks where they're at, but also hoping to provide alternatives if they can't fit us into a meeting schedule or we can't find another meeting alternative or a smaller group representing them to meet with us, to be able to provide that written survey option or other means for them to provide information and input to us. Let's see. And like I said, we're planning to do some evaluation of the process. We have some ideas in mind for how to solicit feedback on the process itself of asking people to give us feedback and then sort of how we use the results in the end. We're hoping to wrap up kind of finalizing this plan and posting it on our website by mid-June. So I'm happy to answer any questions or field any comments.
I'm sorry, what's the part you want to finish by mid-June?
Just having the draft plan up on our website. So the document that you all were sent hasn't been put on our website yet for folks to see, and sort of we wanted to get it in draft form, run it by you all today, give it to a couple of other entities. Like I said, the City Office of Neighborhood Involvement has helped us tremendously in thinking this through and kind of wrap up its draft form before we posted it as kind of our official plan in mid-June.
Is anybody? And that'll include, you'll also publish all the organizations you've
thought
of to date?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. There are 50-plus different outreach potential connection points we want to tap there.
Okay. Well, great.
Thanks.
The meeting is just sailing right along here. So we're now at actually the penultimate moment of our meeting. We say goodbye today to two of our allocation committee members, Ron Beltz and Adrienne Livingston. We want to thank Ron and Adrienne for their service. Ron has represented the Portland Business Alliance on the allocation committee from day one in 2002, and Adrienne has represented the citizens of Multnomah County for 7 years. She started serving in 2007, so 7 years. But I just want to say on behalf of myself and the staff, we greatly appreciate your dedication and commitment to our city's children, and we wish both of you the best of success in your endeavors in the future. And I just can't say, thank you enough for your service. Thank you. I don't know if other committee members have anything they wanted to say, or our outgoing members had any words of wisdom. Now's the time to do that.
Well, having not served very long myself, I don't know what words of wisdom I could provide. I'm going to miss the leadership of both Ron and Adrienne, certainly coming onto this allocation committee when I did at a time when we had to make some really difficult decisions in those first months, and I just really valued the opportunity that I was working with colleagues who had been involved for a number of years and could provide, I guess, the kind of modeling and leadership that meant a lot to me. So I'm going to miss working with them, and I also wish them very well in their other endeavors and wherever those paths go. Thanks.
I think your microphone needs to be on.
I'm sorry.
There, yeah, start over.
Okay. Now I thought I sounded soft. So anyway, it's been delightful to work with you both, and I really appreciate, parting gifts. We really appreciate your hard work. I know it's been many late nights reading those applications, so we appreciate your work in that regard.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, I have to say, I kept telling people it was 4 years. I didn't realize it was 6 years. It actually went by very quickly. So, wow. I have to say it's really been a privilege. I've actually grown from serving on the committee. I have definitely enjoyed working with my colleagues here, the staff, nonprofit organizations. Just the privilege to be able to give money to nonprofits that are serving the community. Being a nonprofit myself, I understand the challenges that we have in raising funds in a very tumultuous economy. So I'm very thankful that the voters decided to renew the levy. That was something that, when I can't remember, I think it was the Oregon Women's Voter Pamphlet had called and wanted kind of a testimony from me. I said we would be in a world of hurt if this was not renewed. So I'm just very appreciative to the voters. A couple of things just parting. I would just say to the allocation committee and the staff, as we have been doing, to continue to listen to the community, to the nonprofits, and the recipients. Also, the fact, I hope we do not have a repeat of last year, where we had to reduce funding. I know that it has been very rewarding to be able to give money, but at times it's very challenging to make the decisions, and therefore coming up with the mechanisms to really assess the different grants that come in, and understanding that that's the assessment tool and the application is one thing, but then there is dialogue and input is another, knowing that it's all taken into consideration when we make the decisions. But just, I feel for those challenging times. I remember those. And again, I hope there's not a repeat. Again, I hope, I don't remember all the compensation or the compounding, compression, all that stuff. It just, I hope that doesn't happen again. But as we move forward, just to continue to remember that, with a lot of what we're also funding is programs, but knowing that systems change takes time, and that as we look at funding even differently, to consider the different organizations that are applying, that are looking at systems change, because that will take time, and you may not see the measure results immediately because it's not going to be quick when you come to systems change, and so it will be over time, but just to consider that. And as you look to renew these positions, just to continue, as was stated already, looking at the cultural papers and looking at the community, that you would still keep this committee even diverse. I would definitely encourage that. And outside of that, I am starting a new chapter. You won't, just because you're not going to see me here doesn't mean you won't see me. I'm actually going to be working in the anti-human sex trafficking of our children, both locally, nationally, and internationally. That is an issue that you should be aware of. I'm actually going to stay on a lot of education boards because it does impact our kids. When I just think of the sickness that is out there, I can't help but want to fight for those who don't have a voice. So that's where you will see me, but that also for you to know that that is an issue that is increasing even in our own community. It's no longer just there international. It is here in our own backyard. So with that, again, it has been a privilege, and you will continue to see me. I'm going to be staying in Portland. So
Great. Well, thanks, Adrienne. Thank you. Final shots, Ron?
I guess after 11 years, I have to say a couple words.
11 years, okay.
11. It is quite interesting. First of all, I appreciate that the Business Alliance has had a seat here, and I hope everybody appreciates the partnership and how much Portland business cares about children. Part of the Levy's history is the Business Alliance and its sister organization, the Citizens Crime Commission, underwrote a study of what can we do to help kids in Portland, and the outcome of that was that we needed a levy and we needed to really put our money up and help kids, and that's how come we're here. We really, and I hate to speak for Dan, but I kind of will, and that is we really didn't know what we were doing. And the staff that we had, and everybody was young then, younger than we are now, but nobody had ever done anything like that before. If you think about starting a children's levy from scratch, and how do you fund, what do you do, how do you allocate it? And so we certainly learned a lot along the way. The system's a lot more refined, still doesn't please everybody, but there are tough decisions to make. And I'm just so thankful that we've had this and we've helped so many kids, yet the needs are still great and we don't nearly help as many as I wish we could. I really want to thank Dan, who's championed this. It's been his baby. It's like his own child. And you just really have to, the guy has been manning the phones for every levy, his own time, his own money, putting it up to try to make this a success. It's been fun to watch the staff grow. I think they really help guide us and refine us, keep us in a bit of an organized way, yet still respected our independence and not try to control our decision making, and really there was very little, I think, when they didn't agree with us, but really truly respected us, that we had different ideas of a way to go about things, and I appreciate that too. How much time has changed. We have a staff person that got married and had children. We had another staff person whose husband ran for elective office. She had a son that's grown up now, that she was anti-football. Now he plays football. And so it's really been terrific. Dan and I go way, way back to our kids, or his daughter and my kids went to school together. His aunt was the best teacher my kids ever had. She's just unbelievable. And the reason I'm really stepping back is because I think it takes a lot of time during the allocation. My kids were in grade school when I started. My son graduated from college last year. Our daughter's going to be a senior. She plays college softball, and so we're going to travel and watch all the games her senior season, and I really am not going to be here a lot for the allocation, which I think will take a lot of time. Otherwise, I'll still be downtown, may come back to haunt you guys occasionally. Anyway, thank you very much. It's been terrific.
Thanks, Ron. We are always both of you are always welcome to come back and be on that side of the table. So we will probably, we don't have a date set for our next allocation committee. It'll probably be sometime in July, late July or early August. And at that meeting, we will be welcoming 2 new members, one appointed by the Portland Business Alliance, and then a citizen appointed by the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners.
Dan, we do have an appointment if you'd like me to.
Sure.
Or do you want to wait?
You can go ahead and share.
Our new person is a terrific person, Mitch Horniker. He's a City of Portland resident, 2 children in school, one of the founders of New Avenues, which is terrific. He's very involved in children's issues. Put up his own money for the Levy renewal and is very, very excited about rolling up his sleeves and getting involved. So I think he'll be a great addition, and I think he'll be able to keep Commissioner Kafori under control.
So we'll be welcoming Mitch Horniker, who is also president of Howard S. Wright Construction,
Yes.
Representing the Portland Business Alliance, and then we'll have somebody new from the county. But thank you all for being here today, and thank you again, Ron and Adrienne, and the rest of and Julie and Deborah too for all your hard work. And we are adjourned.
This is the shortest meeting for now, yes.